I think we can start. It's 12 noon. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. My name is Simona Leskovar. I am a Slovenian diplomat and a program director of this year's Bled Strategic Forum. And it's really a pleasure to be here and an honor that I can moderate today's panel titled Europe's Choice: Forge Unity or Face Fragmentation. This is not just a rhetorical question, it's actually a wake-up call. We are joined here by the outstanding group of panelists ready to tackle this question head-on. Thank you all for being here with us, and I'm confident that we are on for a very sharp, honest, and forward-looking conversation. We have an hour and 15 minutes that we will explore what it takes for the EU to act with a greater unity, with purpose and global influence, from strategic sovereignty to internal reforms, from global engagement to the enlargement. But let's start with a big picture first. EU has often turned a crisis into opportunities, but today's challenges are different. We are entering more unstable, more competitive world where old alliances shift and the rules-based order erodes. So where does that leave Europe? Can EU become a true global power, or is that ambition slipping out of reach? What reforms, internal and external, are needed to adapt or even to survive? We should also look inward. Rising populism, foreign interference, and deepening divisions that all test Union's cohesion. Is there a shared European vision? And does the enlargement still unify or risk contributing to fragmentation? As I said, these are not abstract questions. They are urgent and they will shape the future of Europe. To explore these questions, we are joined by 4 outstanding voices who bring a wealth of experience and perspective to the table. So before begin the discussion, let me briefly introduce all 4 of them. Our first panelist is one of the EU's most seasoned and respected diplomat, João Vale de Almeida. Over the course of his career, João served as a top EU representative in Washington, at the United Nations in New York, and as the first EU ambassador to the UK after Brexit. Earlier, he was also head of the cabinet for the European Commission President Barroso and Sherpa for G8 and G20 meetings, placing him at the heart of global decision-making during the formative times of the European Union. Then our second panelist is Aart Jan de Geus. I was rehearsing to correctly spell the last name, a distinguished policymaker with a rare blend of experience from a national politics, international governance, and policy leadership. Jan served as a Minister of Labour and Social Affairs in the Netherlands. He was also a Deputy Secretary General of the OECD and later chairman of the Bertelsmann Stiftung. Today, he continues to shape policy and leadership thinking as a professor, as a teacher at the Paris School of International Affairs. Then we have Ms. Irena Joveva, who represents a new generation of European leaders. Now in her second term as a European Parliament member with the Renew Group, she brings a background in journalism that drives her focus on transparency, accountability, and youth engagement in the future of Europe. And we have also with us Mr. Nikola Dimitrov, a highly respected diplomat and reformer, probably best known to all of us for a leading role behind the negotiations for the historic Prespa agreement as a foreign minister of North Macedonia, then Macedonia. He later served as a deputy prime minister for Europe, European integration, and was previous North Macedonian ambassador to the United States. Nikola's experience offers a unique first-hand perspective on Europe's external relations and enlargement process. But let's now start with the real discussion. So I will actually start our conversation with João. João, as I said, you had the front row seat to the European evolving global role over the past 2 decades. And much of that you shared in your new book called The Divorce of Nations. So it's here. Your experience actually give the very special vantage point on where Europe stands today and where it might be heading. So let me ask you, is strategic sovereignty bold enough ambition in order to EU truly establish itself as a geopolitical power? Or does it fall short of what this moment demands?
Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you, Simona. It's a great pleasure to be here, first time in the Bled Strategic Forum. I remember well our good cooperation in London in the difficult first couple of years after Brexit. And so again, thank you, and thank you all for coming this morning. Let me be blunt and use my regained freedom of expression after retirement to say that I think the combination of the exogenous, the external threats that we have today, and the internal one from extremist populist forces represents an existential threat for the European Union. And I think very hardly before saying this. I've seen a crisis in the European Union in my 40-year career. I've seen situations that were told to be existential. They prove not to be because we're still here. And I'm confident that the Union will overcome this set of challenges. But the condition for us to be successful is to be aware of the seriousness of what we have today. And if you combine the Putin, Trump, Xi factors with the populist internal threats, it's quite an explosive cocktail. So we need to start from there by acknowledging that we have a real challenge today. Strategic sovereignty or strategic autonomy, I don't really know what that is. Is it an autonomy with a strategy, or is it an autonomous strategy? What are we talking about? I prefer to talk about the issue that is central today in Europe and the world, and for the place of Europe in the world, which is the question of power. It is about power, and it will be even more about power in the future. And we need to address all this from that angle. How do we make all of us more powerful? How do we make our countries, our people, our European Union more powerful in a world that is becoming about power confrontation? I say two things are needed. First, we need to be strong at home. You cannot be strong abroad if you are not strong at home. And strong at home means competitiveness, means technological leadership, means completing the internal market and liberating all its potential. But it also means liberating the forces in our society, the entrepreneurial capacity of Europeans, the creativity of Europeans, All that, we need that. We know that there is an untapped potential in what we have. We can do more and we can do better if we want to be strong, strong at home. But we also need to be strong abroad. You need a combination of the two. And I very much welcome the recent developments on security and defense. They are absolutely crucial. In my sort of historic perspective, you'll find that in my book, I think this is the new frontier of European integration. Because we were a project of peace, but a project of peace inside the European Union. That was the basic idea, right? Stop civil wars in Europe. And we were largely, absolutely successful in doing that. I mean, inside the countries of the European Union. Now we need, our next phase of our project is to project that peace project beyond the borders of the European Union. You know, if I think of Bled, I think of an island. We cannot be an island of cooperation, isolated in an ocean of confrontation. We cannot be an island of multilateralism in an ocean of unilateralism, protectionism, transactionalism, which is what we are heading for. Nothing will be the same as before. We need to understand that. So, strong at home, strong abroad, but also proud of what we have achieved, proud of our way of life, proud of what we stand for, our values, our social economic model, the balance that we found between protection and initiative. All that should be part of our narrative. Now, my last point is about should this be a top-down or a bottom-up operation? And I've seen a lot of reports recently, very important and interesting ones, from Draghi to Letta. Italy is very creative as always, so we have a lot of ideas coming from Italy, but everywhere, and I hope around the Bled Strategic Forum, other ideas will come up. But I need to issue a little warning. This will not be done on a top-down basis. We cannot dictate unity to European governments or to European people. We cannot impose unity through treaties. There's a limit to what we can do top-down. And we've done a lot top-down in the early years of the integration process, and I've lived through some of those processes. The reality today is much more complex. We need to do it bottom-up. We need to win back the voters. Because you can have the most beautiful treaty. And I lived through the negative referendum on the Constitution in 2005. As Chief of Staff of the President of the Commission. And I know how painful it was. If we do it again like that, we will have the same result. So let's not overplay the issue of treaty change that's going to change the reality. The treaty change has to be the reflex of the change in the reality. So my call is on all of us, political leaders, but also think tank leaders, but also people in the business circle, in the academic circle. We need to rise to this challenge, or otherwise the EU will succumb to this uniquely dangerous set of challenges that we have today. Thank you.
Let me now turn to Aart and pick it where João actually left it with all these necessary changes that we need to adopt and work on them, put down nicely in many reports we have. So my question would be, Aart, you worked at the crossroads of national and international policy making as a Dutch minister, but then also within the OECD. According to your experience, what do you think it will take EU to act more decisively, as João alluded to, both at home and at the global level? So is this about the institutional reforms, or does it come down to the political will?
The reality check is that we are not autonomous, that we are depending on others, and that we are not completely unified. So, take for example the visit to Trump. If you go there with 5 different leaders, is that a sign of strength, of unity, or is it a sign of weakness that we do not trust to give the mandate to one person to go there? Question mark. And here I think, you know, that the diversity in Europe in itself is a weakness and it is a strength. And I can illustrate that with the T-shirt that you can buy in Athens. Who of you were in Athens? I think all of you, at least you. I was in Athens and there was a T-shirt, and on the front side there was the question mark, where is heaven? Heaven is where the cooks are French, where the mechanics are German, where the policemen are British, where the lovers are Greek, and where everything is organized by the Swiss. So this is about diversity. Now what is on the backside? Where is hell? Where the mechanics are French, where the cooks are British, where the policemen are German, where the lovers are Swiss, and everything is organized by the Greek. So, what do I want to say with that example? That is, if we respect the different qualities of all of us, and if we bring that together in a good melting pot, then we are incredibly strong. If we keep our own national-oriented policies, no way. So Europe was born from the fear of the past. And it was successful in that sense. But now we live in different times, so we need new pathways. And you are asking me for what could be these new pathways. So, number one, I would say, should we ally with China? We should make deals with China, but alliance with China and then also implicitly with Russia, is that a good idea? So, one could say, we got a new enemy, Russia, and we lost a friend, which is America. So what we should do is we should reach out to Africa, which is the new, potential continent for allies and for human capital, etc. Second point, there is a lot of discussion about multi-speed Europe. I don't like the word, because multi-speed will say some are ahead and others are behind. This is not respectful. I talk always about the multi-track Europe. We have the European Union, we have Schengen, which is a different membership. We have the Eurozone, which is a different membership. We have the Eurovision Song Festival, which is a different membership. We have the Champions League, which is a different membership. And the two latter are more on the cultural side. So what I think is we should have also a multi-track, one of the track for defense. And we should not worry about the fact that it is not full Europe or all the European Union, but we should provide these multi-tracks for coalitions who are willing, and please go ahead. Last but not least, I want to build on what João said about the Constitution. I was there in the Netherlands when we rejected the European Constitution. And people in the street were asked, why do you reject this proposal? Well, I don't like the euro. Huh? No, the euro was introduced 5 years ago, and since prices went up. Okay, what does it have to do with the Constitution? I don't know, but I don't like the euro. So if you ask in a referendum on a complicated political issue, the default response of people is negative, because people do not trust the establishment. So in that sense, and there, I think we should not ask referenda about such kind of things. Mm-hmm. But I also think that 20 years later, there's a new momentum for the European Constitution. Because I think that ordinary people feel that there is the need to anchor the basic values, to improve the capacity for the European Union to deliver, and this is all the heart of the European Constitution. So I think there's a new momentum for the European Constitution.
And let me pick right here with Irena. If Irena, you are now in your second term as a MEP, and you entered politics from journalism. So you have this very unique perspective on both how the EU sees itself, but also how it's seen by the public. So from where do you stand today? Do you believe that there is a shared vision for the future of EU and Europe broadly? And if there's none, what would yours be?
Thank you very much, Simona. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. And also thank you for the opportunity not only to speak, but also to stay at least today, one day more at home, because I would be in Brussels usually. So it's really nice to be here in Bled, at least for a few hours more. Yeah, as you mentioned, this is my second mandate. And when the first one was, crazy with Corona and everything, and then war in Ukraine. And I was like, in the campaign a year ago, it's impossible that the second one will be even crazier, because it was so messed up, everything in the previous one. Yeah, I was wrong. I'm not usually wrong, but I was wrong this time, because it's really, it's messed up. I don't know how to say it differently. I'm very blunt and honest. I don't like to, say 5 sentences and nothing at the end. So it's really hard for me, as someone who came from journalism and who still thinks a lot about it, because my mission is the same. I want to serve to the people. I served them as a journalist, and now I serve them, or try to serve them, as a politician as much as I can. I was naive a little bit when I thought that things are not so complicated, but they are now even more. So it's really a challenge for me to work in this environment, especially in this mandate, because the political picture right now in the European Parliament is not good, at least from my perspective or from my point of view, because it was mentioned, the rise of populism, the rise of a lot of dangerous, actually, stances and ideas, and everything that we fought or was fought years before, when I wasn't even born yet. It's coming back, so it's really, it's not an easy job to do if you, of course, do it as a mission, as I have. So, common shared vision. There's a vision, but I'm not sure that it's shared, at least not 100%, because if it would be, then the political will would be here, and we would at least do some reforms that are really needed. It's like, in the previous mandate, we tried, nothing happened, there was no political will. I guess in this one, it's even harder to do anything regarding that. We will still try, at least I'm speaking now for my my political group, for Renew, but we are not the only ones. But we really think and believe that we should reform ourselves. And of course, enlargement comes here hand in hand. It should come, because as the question was European Union and Europe, I would like to say only European Union, and not, differently European Union and Europe anymore, because I think that we really have countries that should be a part of this family years ago, but probably Nikola will speak more about that from the perspective of Western Balkans, but not only Western Balkans. We have also Ukraine and Moldova. It's obvious that institutional reforms are needed, but it's also obvious that the treaty is so hard to change because of the unanimity in the Council. that I do not expect it as realistic, at least in this mandate. I just want to be like honest, as I said. It doesn't mean that we will stop fighting and just leave everything for the populists or nationalists or whatever to do what they are trying to do. But it's really, the challenge is really, I think, bigger than not only from the previous mandate, but I think from since the beginning of this political family, if I may say so. So if you would ask me what it should be done, definitely changes of the treaty, definitely. And I'm not saying this because I'm a member of the European Parliament, but it is a fact that the European Parliament is the only elected institution and has like the less powers from the three institutions. We cannot do anything without the Council, and we do stuff with majority, and they don't. They do it with unanimity, and then you have one. It's only one is enough. One leader that doesn't have shared common vision, and we all are aware that we have at least one leader like that at this moment in the Council. So it's impossible to make changes, at least positive ones, or not, maybe not impossible completely, but very, very, very hard. So I think that reform in that way, that the Parliament would get more powers, is really, I think, on place. Maybe not in this mandate, because as I said, the political picture is not good at the moment. But still, I think it has to be done if we want European Union to move, because it was said, I mean, even the largest country in the European Union is small if you compare it with China, US, or Russia, if you want. So it's impossible to compete like that. And if you have 27 different opinions, or 26 the same and one different, it's still enough, because the system is so complicated. So I think that the reform is needed, but also political will that I, at the moment, do not see. And I really do not want the Commission to have more centralized powers than it already has, because I think it wouldn't be a good way forward.
Thank you. Let me now turn to Nikola and again pick it up where Irena stopped. She was talking about how difficult it is to have any reforms. But you prove it on a national basis in North Macedonia, that reform and change is possible, and a big one. And it comes with a lot of sacrifice. So, and you've been a key figure in advancing your country's EU path. So from your perspective, Nikola, where does the enlargement fit in all this European, broader EU's picture that we are speaking about it today? Can the enlargement serve as a force of unity and strength across the continent, or can or is becoming casualty of a very fragmentation among us?
Thank you, Simona, for the question, for the opportunity to be on such a distinguished panel. I'm a veteran of Bled, and I've witnessed how this forum has become so important, I think among the most on our continent. So it's always a privilege to be here, distracted by the views as well. I am a non-EU European, so in contrast to the rest of the panelists, so I'm going to touch upon enlargement in our context, but also speak a bit what European Union is from a perspective of a candidate country. I was at Globsec. The last panel was on the Middle East. We had a lady from the Emirates, an expert from Saudi Arabia, a European expert, and an Israeli, and I asked them, in your strategic calculus, do we matter, Europe or a particular European country? The lady said, frankly, not really. So we are not a global power. There is an ambition, but I don't think we are. And to use this perspective as a non-EU European, I live in a country where we have been looking up to you for about 3 decades now. We've been a candidate country for 20 years. As Prime Minister Plenković said yesterday, we signed the Association and Stabilization Agreement before Croatia. We are yet to properly start the accession talks. For us, EU is our dream. Whenever we talk about better governance and justice for everyone, we think of the EU. And I think the magnet is EU is the leading world entity in providing quality of life for a majority of its citizens. And number two, what EU stands for. This idea that EU is a principled, consistent actor that can lead by an example. I think that magnet is extremely strong. Senator McCain used to say that for the United States, interests are its values, and its values are its interests. And I think this even more applies to the EU because we don't have the military muscle that we need. So, for instance, our inability to speak with one loud voice on the horrors of Gaza hurts our perception of a principled player on big moral crossroads in this century. So I'm actually grateful as a non-EU European to Slovenia for helping in many ways to strengthen this voice on something that will make it so difficult in the future for the EU to talk about rules-based order, international law, human rights, etc., etc. If we are not loud on this, even the cautious International Court of Justice in The Hague, in granting preliminary measures, found that the claims are plausible of claims of genocide being committed. Now, so I think to end this perspective, if European Union loses this aura of morality and being on the right side, it will lose everything. While it is true that it's time to invest in defense, it's time to get our act together on being able to provide for our own security. We cannot be so dependent on energy. We cannot be so dependent on security with our transatlantic friends. This soft power is still extremely important as we work to increase our hard power. Enlargement is part of this puzzle. I come from a region which is not far from Slovenia. We are encircled by member states, and I think it's relatively straightforward that the continent, in taking into account the Russian aggression against Ukraine and this global shaky might makes it right world that we are living in, it's very simple that we need to consolidate our territory and export stability and good governance in a region that is geographically in our midst. And every once in a while, there will be a challenge where this region will matter, such as the so-called Balkan route in 2015 and 16 with the refugee crisis. So will Europe be stronger if it is able to get enlargement in order and actually deliver? I think it's a very sort of no-brainer answer. Absolutely yes. Then if you have an ambition to be a global actor, you need to prove yourselves locally. There is no region in the world where EU has a bigger leverage because of the Thessaloniki promise of 2003 and the perspective than in the Western Balkans. And if you cannot make a difference in that region, you will fail everywhere else. So, in terms of track record, I think even only for the ambition to walk the talk and deliver, we need to do this. Now, it is fair to say that on enlargement, we share the blame. The governments, the societies of the Western Balkans, in terms of not really being there in terms of reforms, in terms of not delivering fully, but even in times, and you mentioned it, when I was part of a government where we managed to solve an issue that was blocking us forever, even then, because of one or another European leader, EU was not able to deliver on its promises. And the strategic mistake of not rewarding a country that solved a problem sent the wrong message to the rest of us. The message was, do not do what we say, because the political capital invested will be in vain. We will fail you in the end. This should not happen. We are still stuck. And I think that my country, regrettably, has become a notorious example of how not to do enlargement. Natalie Tocci yesterday said the poison of enlargement is bilateralization over issues that have nothing to do with the Copenhagen criteria, European values or interests. And that's why, and I'm ending on this, I think what Ljubljana and Berlin started a couple of years ago, the discussion about decision-making on enlargement, whether it's QMV, whether it's super QMV. I think it makes sense to make national vetoes more difficult, more politically costly, because it takes one elections to go wrong among the 27 European nations for the whole EU to get blocked on enlargement or something else. So I think we have to, I know it's very difficult, it's easier to say than to do, but I think even the debate itself is useful. We have to reach a point where blocking over a petty national interest will be embarrassing. You cannot block a candidate country because you don't agree that their language is a proper language. Not in Europe, not in the 21st century, not in an entity that has a motto united in diversity. It has to be embarrassing to do so.
Let me do a very short subsequent question for all four of you, and then I will open the floor and will invite you also to take part in this conversation. We have a mic. You just raise a hand and introduce yourself and affiliation, and then we will continue the conversation. But just let me ask, all four of you. You all spoke about also power and experience, and so my question would be very simple. We didn't learn anything or enough that we are not able to adopt and make this at least incremental step forward? Because we have all the recipes what to do, however we don't do it. João, you served in Brussels for so many years.
Let me start by saying that we should not underestimate what we have achieved, right, in these decades of European integration. And I sometimes feel that in our discussions we kind of focus on the negative side and
exactly
forget the rest.
That's something that goes through the Bled strategic forum, that we are reminded by our friends from Western Balkans that we are not self-confident enough as a European.
No, I think we need to be prouder of what we have achieved. As I said earlier, we need to be less arrogant on some areas, less naive on others, but certainly more confident on our model. But I think our the statements made here, the points made by my panel colleagues, reinforce my earlier point. It's about politics, stupid, right? This is a political, highly political situation in which we are today. If you take treaty changes or enlargement, you are blocked against a political wall. This is a political wall. We don't have the votes. Let's be clear. We don't have the votes in Europe for a treaty change. We don't have the votes in Europe for enlargement. If we ask the voters, you will not get them. And there's no way out of this. We can be very creative, very, sophisticated in our ideas, but we are democracy, so we still need the votes. And we don't have the votes. I can be challenged by you, and I'm ready to challenge you, but, my experience tells me we don't have more votes today than we had before. So what is the element here that I would like to explore is, are Mr. Trump and Mr. Putin and Mr. Xi helping us somehow? Can we use, in a cynical way, this set of major exogenous challenges that we have in a creative and positive way for the Union? And I think this is politically the heart of the matter. As we deal with these challenges, in my view, existential ones, of external threat and populism, are we capable of turning these very negative kind of circumstances in something that provides and generates progress in European integration? This is the heart of the matter. And let's not forget where we started. We started as a response to civil war in Europe. Major challenge. And then we progressed with support from the United States, we should never forget that, and having in mind the threat coming from the Soviet Union, right? The history of the Union is largely made of external factors, positive and negative ones. What I would hope that my people that are following me in European institutions, people who are now in power, members of the European Parliament, the younger generation that will shape the lifetime of my grandchildren, I hope that they use this negative set of circumstances and turn it magically into a positive outcome. And I think this is where the challenge, and there's nothing more political than this. This is not about lawyers drafting article treaties. This is about political leadership. This is about all of us, as we vote, our leaders, as they exercise power, to seize this opportunity. And I think, and I remain, as I say in my book, I remain confident that we can overcome this. But we should start by acknowledging that this is existential, potentially existential for you.
Aart, I'm turning to you, and I asked you before, when we talk about the reforms and if there is a political will for that. So how you garner the political will and political support also? You were a minister, you were a politician, and in the difficult times also for the Dutch politics. So how you garner the support of voters? And that question also goes to Irena. Is this so difficult? Also, social media today are brutal. Media are brutal also, with all these fake news and disinformations, and that people you mentioned before what happened in the Netherlands with the referendum. We saw also what happened, that country left the European Union, what were the reasons. So how can we actually have this political will that it obviously is needed if we want to move things further?
The only way forward is to give a positive perspective for the future. often politicians react to others and say, well, this is not true what you say because I have another opinion. Voters would not be emotionally touched by that. So what was the success factor when I did the reform of the disability pension system in the Netherlands, which hurted a lot of people because they were taken out of this disability pension, and then we transformed them into unemployed potential workers. So they were angry. So what did we do in the campaign? We used the traffic light, and we say the focus will no longer be on what you cannot do anymore, the red light, but we focus on what is your potential to do in the future, the green light. So we should invest in the capacity of people. Well, this is just an example to give the perspective for the future, and this is exactly what we did in the conclave meetings. Guillaume is here, you were there, and maybe others also. Costa was there, with a group of people from politics, business, science, and technology, and also civil society. We built this perspective for the future, and Europe can be a global power. You know, we are consumers. Consumers can vote by, and also Peter was there, consumers can vote by making decisions what to buy. And we can decide what to buy. We should be aware that nowadays we have in the US this stable coins, so we should not lag behind. Today in Brazil you have this digital wallet which you can use. So we should not lag behind. We should be clever, but these are some of the perspectives. And also on defense, we can do better. There is a perspective that we can defend ourselves if we make the right decisions. And you know, that's what I said, there is a kind of momentum that people feel, okay, well, we are in danger because we have a new enemy, which is Russia, and we had a friend, but we lost a friend. So my hope is that this crisis that we are in now, that this crisis is deep enough to realize that we have to work together. You said we have smaller and largest countries. I disagree. We have small countries and countries who know they are small. Your country and my country, we are on the second category. Sometimes countries think that they are big and that they want to join Ursula von der Leyen. I don't. You know, all these countries are very small. So we have to work together, and we have to do the soft power. So what did we do good and wrong in OECD when it comes to having this perspective? What we did well is that we invited Putin to become a member of OECD in 2006. At that time, Putin was a theater player, and he wanted to be, you know, internationally recognized. Later on, he turned out to be another person. Well, Russia never became a member of the OECD, but what was good is that we invited, at the same time, Slovenia, Estonia, Chile, and others, so that was good. What we did not do good is that we did not change the rule of the game. And that is what we should do when it comes to enlargement, or when it comes to new multilateralism. Europe is inclined, and political leaders are inclined to say, wow, you're welcome to cooperate with us on our terms and conditions. Is that respectful? Shouldn't we say, we need to cooperate? This is what we can bring. What are your proposals for the when it comes to European Union or OECD? If you cooperate, you have to be welcoming. And I prepared a note called Go OECD, the Global Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development. And then the Secretary General said, Aart, no way. Belgium and Luxembourg will never give up their seats in the Council. And this is the story of Europe. So I hope the crisis will be deep enough. And then if the crisis is deep enough, then there is the young generation. My hope is on you.
No pressure.
So Irena, from just to follow up on this and the political will and what the younger generation can do, and so my question would be one that so if you would be loud enough as a young generation, you would be heard. But if you would tell some things, I mean, some truth, like Aart said, that if you would put this traffic light and you would put what's achievable, but maybe not be so loud on what's not. So what then? Which one can win then at the end? If you are loud, that people will hear you, or if you are decent and you are telling the truth, but you will not achieve what you want. Is this something that's your experience also in the parliament?
Yeah, I think you can be loud and decent and tell the truth. At least I'm trying to do that. Maybe I wasn't loud enough in the first mandate, or not enough, but I was maybe trying to be too decent or too, I was too shy, or just let my
When people
bigger...
get older, they get louder.
Okay, yeah. maybe that's the thing. But I was sick of some colleagues patronizing us. I will say us because I'm not the only one. I was sick of the non-transparency. I was sick of the, not telling things the way they are. You have to say it directly, because the people or the voters are sick of just hearing how we are concerned about something, or how deeply sorry we are, or nothing can be done, or, it's like, or you just talk about solutions and debate and debate and debate, and then nothing happens and you do not deliver. Of course, the system is complicated, as I mentioned before. That's why the reforms and the political will is needed, but it's hard to explain that to the people. But this is not the fault only, I think, to the dangerous populists or authoritarians that are also in the European parliaments, but also our fault. We have to take responsibility to say that, we didn't, I guess, do things the way that they should be done. For example, that was already mentioned regarding North Macedonia, but also the Western Balkans as such. We have now very dangerous situations, I think, in Bosnia and Herzegovina and Serbia, and the European Union is concerned. I mean, come on. The same goes to the Middle East, especially the genocide that's happening in Gaza, and the European Union is concerned.
Yeah.
So it's really hard, when you have, and I agree, we have achieved a lot, and we have to, I think that there is no better alternative than the European Union as such. But if you so proudly promote your values and principles and rule of law and democracy on paper, and also in debates, and then do nothing when it comes to actions, or when you have to act and you are just concerned, then, people are, of course, already disappointed, and it's just, more and more, and they do not trust you or us. What I do, not only me, but I use social media a lot, because we live in those times that you have to, but I use them to make people to see that I'm a normal, I don't know how to say it differently, but I'm just a human being like them. I have a position that I want to use, of course, to help them as much as I can, but I'm nothing more than them. I think that's the best way for people to gain trust back. And it's simple, you just have to be transparent and honest. And I do not see that in our institutions, not enough. We had scandals, a lot of them. A few things change, but not really in basic principles. So yeah, I'm optimistic, and I will be loud, and I think my generation is louder and louder, but also staying decent, at least the majority of us. And I am optimistic that this crisis will be used as an opportunity to really do things that need to be done, but I'm cautiously optimistic, let's say it like that.
Nikola, very briefly to you, and then I will open the floor. Trust we are speaking about, that is lacking, but it's so important also to build societies, democracies, and to gain power and to be respected power on a global stage. How people in North Macedonia actually sees European Union still after all these promises not kept, although you referred earlier that also some of the homework was not done properly at home. But how is this, I mean, can you elaborate very briefly how this trust actually is important, that we would be more respected global player as well?
There was a poll done regionally by IRI, and the question was, do you think EU is serious about enlargement? And among Macedonian citizens, about 1/3 thought EU was serious. So it's becoming a challenge to run on a European ticket, run for office, because 2/3 of the population, but the support is still there. Over 2/3, if asked, would you support membership tomorrow at a referendum, they would say yes. But they don't think this is happening. So I always, at meetings with member states, diplomats, etc., leaders, it will make a difference if we find a way to send a signal to the region that we are actually serious. You know, that once in London at an interview, I was asked by the British journalist, why do you want to join when we are leaving? And my answer was, for you that have been on the inside for so long, you forget how cold it is on the outside. So somehow I think maybe we as candidate countries can bring sort of add to the enthusiasm about the European project that has been partly lost among citizens of Europe, of the European Union today. I think we need a narrative, and then leaders who will get their nations excited about that story. I don't think we have a vision. Do we really have a vision where EU should be and what should, you know, in 10 years from now? Among these three big powers, the United States and China and Russia, I'm not sure. So we need to work on a story and hopefully elect leaders that will get our citizens excited about that story. And I think this crisis will help. You're very right. It's very obvious that we are becoming less and less important. So becoming a subject rather than a player. So I think the context on the menu, I think we are pushed to act together. The continent is pushed. We need a story and elect leaders who will be brave enough to, get their people enthusiastic.
Implement the story.
This. Yeah.
I will open the floor now, but I will start here with, we have 15 minutes left. I will start with the report of Conclave Group was mentioned already, and Guillaume Clossat, the president of Conclave and Europa Nova, is here with us. So I will give the first word to Guillaume to say, to comment on what we are talking today, and maybe also to say a few words what this proposal is about. But Guillaume, very shortly, because I have 4 hands.
So maybe 3 comments. So just about the conclave is a high-level pluridisciplinary, maybe yes. The conclave is a high-level pluridisciplinary forward-looking platform providing out-of-the-box consensus coming from European society that can be taken by European society in a bottom-up approach after. And we advise directly the President of the Council, Antonio Costa, and Conclave was built under his patronage. We had 2 fundamental meetings, and the result was the following. 2 years ago, we identified as a main issue for Europe to transform itself into a global, responsible, sustainable power. And we identify the power issue as a key issue, but as a result, not of Trump, but of a 25-year process of American disengagement, of Russia attack, and of Chinese action. So it's not at all a surprise And it's a long-term process. Do not rely on the US coming back and changing. This is completely finished. This is an illusion, and we are maintained in this illusion. And I fully agree with what said João about the fact that there is internal and external pressure. But the problem is that nowadays, for example, the main founder of European disunity are the US and are some US foundation. So we need to be aware of that, first thing. Second thing, it's good to have an ambition, but now we need, and this is the result of the second conclave, we need rapidly a power agenda. A power agenda in order to transform the EU. And it's not so difficult to do so. We have the BRICS, we have the context, but the first thing is we need now the bottom-up approach. And for that, we are going to launch with Slavoj Žižek, Margaret Vestager, Aart, some of you, Nikola Schmidt, and many others, European Power, Europa Power Network, 26, 27 November within the European Parliament. And the idea is to have a decision maker, philosopher, politician, businessman, civil society network who push the leadership to go ahead. And just one last thing, I was special advisor to Jean-Claude Juncker, and before the Brexit, before I was special advisor, he saw the Brexit referendum coming with Margaret is there, with the possibility of a no. And we launched a transnational civic movement in order to prepare the leadership, the political leadership, to have a post-referendum roadmap. And we put the roadmap on the table 6 weeks before the referendum. And this roadmap was approved 2 months after the referendum in Bratislava. This is the Bratislava roadmap. So society, civil society as a whole, and there is a need for a clever relationship between the political power, national leader, European leader, and society. And this thing, I think we lack it today. It does exist at the time of Barroso. I was special advisor of French presidency at that time, and we organized things with a Barroso team. It was very present at the time of Jean-Claude Juncker, and there was great open-mindedness from the member of parliament. But now everything seems like if everybody was in a position of self-retreat. This is very dangerous because this announced defeatism. And this is also explained by the fact that there is a lot of disinformation everywhere and that we are not capable of reacting. But we have all the resources to build very rapidly this trend relationship. It's a matter of time. I had discussion with former general of NATO and American general, and they told me in 3 years we can create the condition for Europe to be independent from the US. But you need to have a plan, you need to have an agenda. You can't wait anymore. The more you wait, the more you suicide yourself. Do we want to suicide? This is the question we have today.
Thank you, Guillaume. Now I'm opening the floor. I saw the hand there, Sabina, and if you can introduce yourself and affiliation and then ask a short question. Can you pass it to the lady behind first and then, yeah.
Thank you very much. Sabina Lange, Think Europe, in Slovenian, Mislište Europa misli. May I start with on a positive note? The European Standard Barometer on its support for enlargement this spring is 10 percentage points higher than it was in 1998, 6 years before the 2004 enlargement happened. That suggests there is some optimism, but we don't have the vote for enlargement, as João Almeida said. So can I ask a question to Nikola Dimitrov? If you accept a role of an advisor to President Macron for the next 10 minutes of me or 5, how would you advise him to win that referendum? How would you persuade the French and the others that enlargement today will strengthen the EU? You mentioned the support for the project, I'm not so sure it's across the whole of the region like that, and it is in Albania, Kosovo, and Macedonia. But how would you sell enlargement to the French nation who goes on the referendum? And very quick question to the others. You mentioned all reform, voting system aside. How do you see the future roles of European Council and Council?
Can we collect few questions and then we will... Okay, gentlemen.
Thank you. I have also a question to Nikola. Sorry. You said it's a challenge today to go on the European ticket in elections. Yesterday we have heard from Irena that this is not a challenge but an advantage, as he has shown in the last elections when he put everything on the European card. How do you explain these differences between also the countries of the Western Balkan 6? And the second question is, what is the parliament saying, your group and all the others, to what you mentioned, this kindergarten in front of Mr. Trump? Is that a point of debate? I couldn't hear it. And I was 10 years in the European Parliament. So I'm really following the news, but it was so silent that I couldn't really see any comment on that.
Here.
Thank you.
Peter.
Thank you. Peter Gerk. I'm here at Bled Strategic Forum. One quick question. I think, also talking to you, but also from my own experience, I think European Union is a champion of incremental developments, incremental approach. The problem with this incremental approach is that it's not sexy. It's not quick decisions, it's not statements that, tomorrow we are going to change union fundamentally and forever. The public doesn't understand the incremental developments, or it doesn't follow them, because more or less they live a life that's quite good. So my question is, how to bring this passion? I mean, how do you, because this is the catch-22, because I don't think that European Union is going to change. We are going to be incremental forever, or we are going to disappear, because we can't do it any other way. As João said, we don't have the votes, and to make quick changes, you don't have the votes. So we are going to stay incremental. How do you make incremental sexy for the public so that they have passion about Europe? And this is, the catch-22. Thank you.
Should we now briefly, and then if there will be some time, we'll collect another round. So maybe to start with Nikola, being for a minute President Macron's advisor on the enlargement.
I would definitely, my first advice would be, let's remedy that mistake on North Macedonia. I think this is a really difficult question. How do we convince the French? With some colleagues of mine, we did a research on French public opinion on enlargement 3-4 years ago with BIPAC. And we discovered it's French voters are not really familiar with the countries in the region, with the process, with how it works. So there is a lack of information and knowledge. It's also an issue that is not important. They may say we don't want enlargement of the Iraq, but it's not even in the first top 20 issues for an average French voter. So it's not a key issue. And I think it has to be presented in a way that touches upon their lives, maybe the role of France and Europe in the world. We are a region that is not only taking huge trade deficits for years. We trade with the market, with the single market. Almost 80% of our trade is with the single market, and we ran on huge trade deficits. 75% of the direct investment comes from European companies. Why do they come? Because there are advantages in our comparatively underdeveloped economic situations, etc. So the EU and France, they're also taking a lot from the region. So I think, how do you make a case? But I think it has to be an idea. I think it has to be a story. And I think President Macron maybe can sell stories. Right? And briefly on the second question, the big difference between the European narrative in Tirana and Skopje is that in Skopje it has been turned upside down. It's not about whether we fight corruption, it's about bilateral issues. And even by and large, EU was silent when the previous government essentially strengthened impunity by changing our criminal code in the name of the EU, because there was a calculation that this will help the relationship with Bulgaria. They will get the votes they need in parliament, etc. So we have hijacked the European accession process and made it about language, history, identity. In Albania, it is about order and rule of law and Copenhagen criteria, etc. So we need to, this has to be a democratic and economic reform process. It cannot be a process of pleasing your neighbors on their 19th century narratives.
We have 5 minutes to conclude, and I will ask Irena if you can pick up on the question about this unity of European Union in the United States, and then maybe João and Aart to pick up on Peter's question about these incremental steps or quick fixes.
Okay, thank you. I will try to be as brief as possible, but actually the answer is not enough, I think. Maybe I wouldn't say no, that we do not do anything. We debate a lot. I think every Strasbourg, not only Strasbourg, but also at the committee level or group levels, more than we did, of course, because the situation is like more or less predictable than it maybe was before, but I think not enough. But on one hand, I can understand, because we do something, we try to react on something, and then the president of the United States wakes up and, says something completely different, and then you have to react on that, and then he says something completely fifth thing. So it's really hard for us to react, also because of the fact that we cannot have quick decisions, because the system, the institutions are not built like that. So I guess here there is a problem regarding that. But I think more and more, I mean, we quite a lot.
You ask why are
yeah.
they sitting there?
Sorry?
Did you ask why are they sitting there?
Who?
The Merz, the Macron,
the triple M.
Yeah.
Macron, Merz, Maloney.
Yeah.
Why von der Leyen? I don't know, but Costa has to sit there.
Yeah, we ask a lot of questions, by the way, and but we do not get the answers that it should be, or they should be. But as I said, that's why I said that I think the powers of the European Parliament should change, also because of that.
Aart and João, about the quick fixes and incremental steps.
Yeah. Well, for the council, you have to make a good plan to reform, and then wait for the momentum. Someday Orban will step down. Someday Russia will have a next aggression. Someday we will have a next financial crisis. You have to prepare your plan and use the momentum. The window of opportunity will be very narrow. There was in 2015 only 4 months where we had the SDGs globally, and where we had a Paris climate agreement. After that, with Trump and Orban and Putin, it was never possible. So wait for the momentum, but have a plan. Incremental fixes, incremental is not sexy. And Peter.
Here.
Okay, you sat down. Okay. Well, I think I think you're right, and this is what spoiled us, because we are doing very well, but we are not thankful, and we don't believe in the future, etc., etc. So how to make it sexy? My recipe is to build milestones and celebrate them as rituals. So when there is something like a new way of cooperation between politics and industry about defense and dual use, so the plan how to spend this money, then you organize something in, I would say, Vienna, an historical city when it comes to, you know, to security issues, or, well, maybe not Munich, but, well, better Vienna. And then you bring together industrial people, you bring together civil society and politicians, and you celebrate. And so you build the rituals, not only for defense, but you can also say, well, if longevity in Europe, on average, has passed maybe 75 or 80, you build a ritual where you celebrate not only our level of access, our level of healthcare, but also the fact that we have access to healthcare in Europe, which is rare. America is good, China is good in operating, etc., but not for everybody. So we should build the rituals to commemorate, and then we make incremental a little bit more, as Peter Gerg wants, sexy.
João?
Yeah, not sure I'm an expert on being sexy or anything like that, or any of us in the room, but
you work for the European Commission, you know, it's hard
yeah, it's hard to become sexy, overall. It's hard to become sexy. Now, I want to link Sabina's question with other questions about if you take support to the European Union, if you ask citizens if they think that being a member of the European Union has been a good thing for their country, in the year 2000, and I come back on that in my book, in the year 2000, 49% thought that the fact that their country was a member was a good thing for them. In 2025, 73%. 49. So the first quarter of the century, we went from 49 to 73% of people. That's Eurobarometer data. So going back to my sort of positive thinking, people believe, to a large majority, that being in the EU is a good thing. So not all is lost. This is not a loser thing, like Mr. Trump would say. Now, we will remain incremental. This is not a designed kind of thing where you go from one to that. The whole history of the Union is incrementalism in action, and it will remain so, and that's the way we protect our democracies, that's the way we protect the rights of each member state, regardless of their size. I don't want to change that at all. Now, becoming sexy cannot be done by Brussels. If there is one lesson I take with me to my grave, is that Brussels is not a good communicator. Commissioners are foreigners, except in the country they know best, as we say in Brussels. The presidents of the Commission, the presidents of the Council have bad accents in whatever language except their own. So how can you communicate in a effective way with citizens, down to earth, normal citizens in Europe? You cannot. Member states, national politicians, national parliaments, national governments, national leaders have a major role. If they criticize the Union for all, they blame the Union for everything from Monday to Friday, and then they ask the voters to vote for the Union on Sunday, they'll never get the votes. So unless the member states' national politicians, meaning all of us, we elect them, take this on board as being our task, that's the way we'll get to move from 73 to 100% of support to move to accept North Macedonia and others. And I think this political dimension is lost sometimes in our debate. Now, to come back to the Trump thing, because I was ambassador there and I followed this event. Several events. And there was a debate about the trade deal and all. I didn't want to miss this thing. It was a disastrous PR operation, right? To go to at the golf course with Mr. Trump in a country that left the European Union recently to sign a deal was a very bad, disastrous PR operation. But this was not about trade. It was formally about trade. This was about Ukraine, Russia, and our security. This was about managing Trump. So the discussions I sometimes see miss the point. It was a very bad trade deal. But it's a trade deal that avoided a trade war that would alienate further Trump and the United States from our main purpose, which is to have them support Ukraine and confront Putin. Of course, if at the end of the day, Mr. Trump still does not support Ukraine and still does not confront Putin, it was an even worse trade deal and an even worse PR operation. Just wanted to conclude on this because there was mention of a device.
So with that, I will not stay between your lunch. So it's a lunchtime. I would just like to invite you to join me in a round of applause for our excellent panelists. Thank you.